The bronze medal group, the below average value creation, and in some ways not even creating value, and just potentially destroying value. Okay, so the first one here is growth by incremental innovation. Right? Now, what this is saying is that, and again, this is a product market competition idea. If the market is as big as it's going to get, and every customer that we could hope to get into the market to buy the product is already there, the only way for us to continue to grow our revenue, in other words, to increase sales, is to sell our product to our competitors. So Apple and the iPhone need to convince some of the Samsung phone owners to buy iPhones, or vice versa. And one of the ways to do that, not the only way, but one of the ways to do that is to try to innovate your product enough, not so that it's a totally new product, but enough that it becomes a cooler or better option, and so you get people to switch over. And I mean, I'm going to use phones here because I think this is sort of the most obvious example, but you can just see that this incremental innovation thing happens just constantly in the tech market. Apple, the iPhone adds a second camera, a second lens, so you have a zoom camera and a wide angle. Samsung does it the next day. They have a faster processor, so Samsung does a faster processor, so the iPhone does it too. They get different screens, they have foldable screens, they do all these kind of slight innovations. Ultimately, the phone is like exactly the same thing as it was before. It just is faster and has a cooler camera and a better screen and all those things. But it's not a different product. It is still exactly the same thing. And the problem with that, as you can see, is that basically what happens is when you try to capture market share like that, it just is going to cause your competitors to retaliate. And not retaliate in like a we're going to kill you way, but just in a we're going to copy you way. Oh, you have two cameras, we have two cameras. Oh, you have a better screen, we have a better screen. You just go back and forth. And even if you may capture some small amount of additional customers from your competitor, when they're going to switch right back. If those people are switching just because of some small incremental innovation, then when the next version of the other phone comes out and it's a little bit better, they'll just switch back, right? So they'll go back and forth, and that just isn't going to create any long-term value for the firm. Okay, so this is not a very effective strategy to create value, but at a certain point, once the market is saturated, it sort of is the only way to even attempt it. Okay, certainly you have to do it if your competitors are doing it, because otherwise they will start to eat at your market share. So you have to keep up, right? So this becomes a strategy you sort of have to participate in, even if you recognize that it's not going to be value creating in the long run. Okay, the second one is you can try to gain market share through product promotion. So you can advertise a bunch, or through pricing, you can offer discounts. Now this is just a sort of across the board, everybody loses scenario, right? If you are product promotion, you're just advertising, you're just spending money, and that's all well and good. But if you're advertising and you sell exactly the same thing, then the person that advertises more is going to make less money because they're spending more advertising, and the products are the same. You're not going to be able to capture enough share if the products have no differentiation, and all you're going to be doing then is just wasting your money. Okay? Now, if you're doing through pricing, what's likely to happen is that you're just going to introduce a price war, right? So if what you do is start trying to undercut the prices of your competitors by selling at a discount, this is going to be a really, really bad strategy for everybody. Everybody is going to lose unless one of the parties is so big and has so much market power that they can sell at a loss long enough to put the other companies out of business, right? So you can gain market share by underpricing your competitors only if you're willing to take it to the bitter end and kill your competitors, right? So only if you are Amazon or Walmart or something of that nature can you actually sell things at a loss at a long enough time period that you can try to put your competitors out of business. Otherwise, a price war, if we think back to our economics class, a price war only has one outcome, which is that we drive marginal revenue down to marginal cost and everybody makes zero profit, right? Because if I offer a 10% discount, then they offer a 15% discount, so I offer a 20% discount. So they offer a 25, and we just drive prices down to marginal cost, right? And we see this happen all the time. The airline industry, it happens all the time. The airline industry is really, really competitive, and they drive prices down to marginal cost. And when they weren't doing that enough, then you get the low cost, like Spirit Airlines and JetBlue and all that drive prices even farther down if the big airlines have to compete with them. You see it in like fast food. That's why fast food companies don't have huge margins, because if you offer a 5 for $5, they offer a 5 for $5. If Burger King says we're selling our burger for $2, then McDonald's has to do the same thing. Otherwise, they're going to lose customers. Okay, so this kind of thing is just an everybody lose situation. The final one is make large acquisitions, right? And the reason why this is not a value creating and certainly not a good strategy, and we know this empirically, most big mergers are value destroying, and that's over the last like 60 years. Okay, so big combinations of two established firms don't work out, and there's a myriad of reasons. But the biggest one is that usually the purchasing company overpays because the target shareholders have a lot of power, and so they demand a high price. It also means that there's a lot of overlap between divisions, right? So they both are going to have accounting divisions, but you don't need two sets of accounting divisions for one firm. So there's going to be a lot of first you got to try to integrate it, see who you want to keep. Then you're going to have to fire a lot of people, piss a bunch of people off. And then you're going to have to try to integrate two different companies with two different cultures. And a lot of times that is really, really unsuccessful, right? You might have one company that has a very open culture. They don't have offices. They all work at, shared desks. They have, beer fridges for Friday, and then you can take a break and play ping pong. And then you got another company where everybody wears a suit and tie, shows up and works in an office all day. They don't socialize. They don't do anything. Trying to combine two companies like that is, sort of a recipe for disaster. Okay. So making big acquisitions, while it is sometimes appealing to managers, right? Managers sometimes do this, and we, even if we think they might even know that they're value destroying, but they get managers themselves get a benefit from being the boss of a bigger firm, right? Lots of people that are the kind of people that are driven to become CEO are also the kind of people that are driven to be the biggest, best CEO there is. And so they make big acquisitions and do things like that, even if it's not really good for shareholders in the long run, and it's certainly not good for value in the long run, just because personally it's better for them and their ego. Okay, so most of the premium, most of the money in a big acquisition goes to the target shareholders and isn't left inside of the firm to generate value. Okay, so now we want to talk about how difficult it is to sustain growth, right? So we want to talk about the sustainability of all those different strategies. And we did a little bit of that. So I just want us to touch on some key points to remember, right? And the biggest key point is that products have a life cycle, right? So this is not like return, where when we talk about growth, we're talking about specific things, right? So if I want to grow revenue, I have to grow the sale of a specific product. And ultimately, what's going to stop me every time is the product lifecycle, because products, again, just like we've talked about earlier, eventually we're going to sell one of everything to everybody who's interested, right? There are no new customers for cell phones. We have sold a cell phone to everybody that wants one in the US, and we have sold 2 cell phones to some people and 3 cell phones to some people. There are, 10-year-old kids have cell phones. Everybody that wants one has got one. Right? So the product market is completely and fully saturated, or what we would say is we are now in a mature product market for cell phones. Right? And the rate of growth, the rate of maturity happens differently for different products, and you can see this play out here in this graph. I think it's a really interesting graph that measures the growth rate in adoption for different products, different like major products that we all want, right? And adoption meaning how fast do we reach maturity in this product? How fast does everybody that want one get one? And so you can see that it happens at different rates, but it's kind of happens interestingly, right? So the telephone is like one of the earliest ones, but notice that that line for the telephone, it's not a sharp spike, right? 30 years go by before we even have 40% of homes having a telephone. And then another 30 years go by before we hit 90% of homes. And of course, if we distinguish telephone from cell phone, we're going to see this drop off because probably less than 30% of homes have a hardline telephone anymore. Whereas you can compare it to, like, say, the electricity line, and within 40 years, 100% of homes have electricity, right? So the market is completely saturated for electricity. And you can see ones that go even steeper than that, like the line for the refrigerator. Within 10 years, almost 90% of homes have a refrigerator, because think about what a game changer the refrigerator was. I mean, it allowed you to store your food for so much longer without it going rotten, and keep all kinds of different things that you could never have done before, right? So while the rate of adoption, the rate of growth might be steadier for some products as people adopt them slower, and faster for others, ultimately, given the product, we are always going to reach a 100% level where there just is no more room for growth, organic growth, and the market is fully saturated. So the sustainability of growth is going to be different for different firms, but it's not going to be as long-term in terms of maintaining a growth rate as long-term as you might maintain a return on invested capital.